Welcome to the War Academy channel. Gotthard Heinrici. Possibly one of the best generals in the German army. However, despite his great ability to carry out operations, both defensive and offensive, his career within the army was always cut short by his bad relations with the German leader, and even with Hermann Göring. These problems arose from his failure to comply with the scorched earth tactic, which Heinrici often refused to do for religious reasons, and for always being willing to give up ground to organize better defenses. This last point, as you know, is comparable to the same problems that other generals like Manstein had. These discussions, which Heinrici always had with the German leaders, led him to spend practically the entire year of 1944 in a forced retirement, from which he had to leave at the end of that year, to be sent to Hungary, where the situation was desperate. Later, in March 1945, he would take command of the German forces in the Oder, to take charge of the last defenses that Germany had on the Eastern Front. In today's program, we are going to focus on Heinrici's performance during the defense carried out by the Germans, after his failed conquest of Moscow, and on how his defensive tactics were that gave him so many good results. It all started when, in early December 1941, the Soviets went on the counterattack, pummeling the worn-out German forces that had been thrown in headlong, to hit a few last targets in Russia. Suffering from the effects of winter, and being attacked by dozens of undetected divisions, the Germans were pushed back and had to fall back, suffering heavy losses. It seemed that the history of the Napoleonic army of 1812 was repeating itself. Faced with this situation, the order given by Hitler was that they should resist statically, without any type of setback. To fulfill this mission, they gave command of the German Fourth Army to General Heinrici, this formation being just west of Moscow, and his position being one of the most important on the entire front. If his sector collapsed, the rest of the German positions would be compromised, and quite possibly a chain defeat would begin. When Heinrici took command of the German Fourth Army on January 26, 1942, the temperature was 42 degrees below zero. The water froze in the boilers of the locomotives, the machine guns hardly fired, and digging trenches was practically impossible because the ground was frozen. The order he received was that he was to hold out until they could reorganize, and the offensive towards Moscow be launched again. There is no doubt that the German High Command was not aware of the harsh situation that was being experienced on the front line, nor of the magnitude of the forces that the Soviet Union still had. His first intentions were to attack Moscow again as soon as possible. Gotthard Heinrici soon realized the difficult mission that lay ahead, but despite this, he was determined that his troops were going to withstand the strong Soviet attacks, and for this he was going to use all his ingenuity. The technique used by General Heinrici consisted of the following. When he knew that a Soviet attack was imminent in a sector, he would order his troops the night before to withdraw to new positions, which had been built to his rear, backing up a few kilometers. When the Soviets launched their artillery attacks the next morning, these shells fell on empty positions. As Heinrici himself said, it was like hitting an empty sack. Once the Soviets loaded their infantry and tanks, they found a terrain where there were some mines and obstacles, in addition to some small German unit, which was put in the area to entertain the Soviets, which soon retracted. This caused the Soviet offensive to lose both its strength and inertia, occupying an abandoned position. In addition, due to the bombing that they themselves had done on the area, everything was full of craters, which did nothing but hinder their progress. When they were fixed on the ground, the German artillery opened fire on them, and later, the German units that were also prepared in the area went on the counterattack, catching the Red Army troops unprepared and disorganized. Once the Soviets were forced to withdraw, the Germans returned to their starting positions, and the line was successfully defended. It should be noted that during these early phases of the war, the Soviets launched very poorly organized offensives and with a still immature technique, which made these German defensive measures much more effective. Still, the whole strategy depended on getting to know exactly when the Soviets were going to attack. To obtain this information, Heinrici had to resort to the interrogations of the prisoners of the Red Army, to the reports of his agents, to the ground and aerial reconnaissance patrols that were carried out in his area, and to an extraordinary sixth sense that he had. However, this tactic that Heinrici applied, which falls within what is commonly known as flexible defense, openly clashed with the orders given by Hitler not to withdraw under any circumstances. There were many high-ranking officers who had been removed from command for disobeying these orders, or directly, for applying tactics similar to Heinrici's. Because of this, Heinrici knew that he had to be very careful and camouflage everything he did. As he always played on the edge of what was allowed, even jumping it on occasion, Heinrici was never viewed favorably by Hitler, and was never given any favors. In any case, his troops held out for almost 10 weeks, receiving intermittent Soviet attacks, until spring, and then summer. With this, the central sector of the Eastern Front lost its leading role, and the new German offensive of 1942 would not be in Moscow, as originally planned, but would be in the southern sector. There Heinrici would remain, in a considerably quiet place, until, with the summer of 1943, and the German failure in the Citadel operation, the entire southern and central front was gradually retreating with each Soviet offensive. We have to remember that both the northern and central German sectors had been weakened to support the various German attacks in the south, and could do little or nothing to contain the Soviets there when they attacked. In December 1943, after fighting many defensive battles along the central sector of the Eastern Front, in which the Germans continually fell back, Heinrici was removed from command and placed in reserve. After years of defensive fights on the Eastern Front, Gotthard Heinrici gained a lot of experience, and they would make him the ideal man to deal with what would be the last German defense between Berlin and the Soviet armies. It is striking that despite the bad relationship he had with Hitler, and the cost to Guderian of having Himmler dismissed, to give Heinrici command of the Vistula Army Group, when on March 20, 1945 he was assigned this task, Heinrici accepted it without question. At that time, many of his subordinates in Hungary told him that it would be best to reject the position, and that he was going straight to the slaughterhouse, but Heinrici told them that he was a soldier and as such, he had to do his duty. It would be in the Seelow Hills, where the German general was able to put into practice his famous tactic again, which, together with the poorly planned Soviet attack, once again gave him very good results. And what do you think? What assessment do you make of General Heinrici? Do you consider that he was one of the most capable commanders of the German army? Do you think that if he hadn't gotten along so badly with Hitler, he would have ended up promoted to Field Marshal? If you want to know more curiosities about him, I recommend the program we did recently about the reasons why Zhukov used anti-aircraft searchlights in his offensive on the Seelow Hills. You can see the link in the description, along with the reference to the book that has helped us make this program, this being Cornelius Ryan's The Last Battle. And well, this video ends here. Thank you all very much, especially the sponsors who make this possible. Subscribe and share this program if you liked it, and see you in the next one. See you soon.